Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Unscripted here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. I'm going to be your host and producer this evening, Logan Landers, and joining me to talk about some NCAA Week 10, where are we? Week 10 game
Yeah.
predictions. As always, Jay McClellan, what's up, man?
I'm doing well. I'm not particularly happy with the college ranking system. Apparently, somehow or another, Oregon slid into the number 6 spot ahead of Texas. So, not really happy about it. But other than that, I'm doing okay, brother.
All right, and of course, stat guy Dustin Reese. How you doing this afternoon, sir?
Well, at least we now know who the kings of Texas baseball are, and the
Oh.
Texas Rangers are going to show. And the
we-
Texas Rangers are going to show Jerry Jones what a victory parade actually looks like this week.
and if you want to learn more, or if you want to listen to us talk about the World Series, we're going to do a special episode of the Film Room. We're going to break down and talk about last night's game, Game 5, the series clinching game in the World Series between Texas and Arizona. That's coming up real soon, so one can stay tuned for that. Well, guys, let's get right into it. We're starting off with a good one here. SEC battle. We have, I guess, officially the number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs, because that's where they're at in the college football playoff format. Number 1 in AP still, going up against Missouri, who's had surprisingly a kind of a quiet year. If you don't follow the program a whole lot, I mean, they're number 12 in the nation. It's currently 7-1, so this is going to be a bit of a tough task for Georgia potentially. Jay, give us your thoughts on who's going to win this one.
Yeah, it really surprised me to see Ohio State slip up to number 1 and bump Georgia down to number 2. That, first off, that really kind of got me. I was like, wow. But yeah, for me, it really comes down to can Mizzou, can they pressure Beck and stuff the run? If they can do those 2 tasks, then I think they have a good shot at winning. The big thing that they have to remember is don't let the moment get too big for them. If they can go in there and play Georgia like they play any other team and just look at it like that, like this is just a game and they're not playing for number 2 spot, then they can do well. They have to stay focused, follow their game plan, and I think and execute the game plan. And I think there's a good shot that Mizzou could actually beat Georgia. I've not been so completely on Georgia this year as being unbeatable as I have in years past. Cook for Mizzou, he's got about 15 touchdowns to 3 picks, about 2,200 yards, and Beck's got about a little over 2,400 yards, 14-4. So the quarterbacks, especially when they look at the stats, are almost about even. And then of course when you look at the running backs, now they're even almost even. If you look at Schrader's averaging 5.7 yards per carry, and Edwards is averaging 5.8. So these guys are almost pretty much the same. And I think Schrader has 9 touchdowns to Edwards 8. So again, these guys are pretty much mirror images in terms of stats. I mean, what they're doing. It's just going to come down who can get their offense going and get their defense going often and early to see that. But I absolutely think that Missouri can stun Georgia and get that number 2 spot, or at least slide up to that direction anyway. So I'm going to go with Mizzou on this one. I think it's going to be a close game, and I think it's going to be 21-14.
All right. Dustin, do you have similar thoughts?
Missouri is quietly having the best season they've had since the Gary Pinkel days back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And for them to kind of do this in the SEC is more of a credit to just that program itself, having to deal with the tough times going from the Big 12 to the SEC and knowing that they were going to take bumps along the way before they got to this point. But now they're at this point, and they are going to spoil somebody's season the last 4 weeks. You have Brady Cook, who's played extremely well, 2,259 yards passing with 15 touchdowns. His leading target is Luther Burden III with 905 yards and 6 touchdowns. The running back, Cody Schrader's got over 800 yards rushing. So Missouri has a very good balance of the run and pass mix as opposed to Georgia. Yes, they have balance, but they really don't have that game-breaking running back that they've had in the past. And their game-breaking player/receiver, Brock Bowers, is still not going to be healthy probably until the SEC championship game if Georgia makes it that far, which I don't think they will because I think Missouri is going to spoil Georgia's season this week, and I think Missouri is going to win this one in overtime. I think it's going to be a 31-28 overtime win. I just think this is Missouri's moment to kind of steal somebody's spotlight and steal somebody's season.
And now, Dustin, that's now
He's
back-to-back weeks. That's back-to-back weeks you've gotten Georgia upsets, right? You picked Florida last week, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I did not pick Florida last week. I picked Georgia to lose to did they play Texas A&M already?
Yeah, I think Logan's thinking of me. I actually
Jay
Florida.
picked Florida over Georgia last week. I picked Georgia over Florida, but I did pick Georgia to lose earlier this year, though.
That's it. I got it. Okay. Just wanted to make sure with that one. For me, this is going to be a good game. I think Georgia, they have a tougher schedule coming up here. Obviously, they've got Tennessee coming up here in a little bit. They've got Ole Miss on the 11th. And then, of course, they round out the year with what should be an easy win at Georgia Tech. But, I mean, 3 of their next 4 opponents are teams that are currently ranked in the top 25. So this is going to be a super-duper tough task for Georgia. And if they can remain unbeaten, they haven't lost a game in literal years. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I don't know if I can count them out yet. I think Missouri's got a really good program. And I think that, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And so far, no one's beat them yet. So until they lose, I got to keep rolling with them, man. So give me Georgia. I got to be in close, though. Give me Georgia 35 and give me Mizzou 32. I think it'll be a good game all in all. And I think the Tigers going to put up a good fight. All right, up next. Absolutely. Good battle here. Oklahoma State. Dustin, give us your thoughts on this one. Who do you think is going to take the W?
Well, I think any chance of the Big 12 having a team make the college football playoffs went out the window last week when Oklahoma lost. Mm-hmm. Because even if Texas wins outright, I still don't think they can get into that top 4. So at this point, I think the Big 12 is going to basically see their 2 teams in Oklahoma and Texas leave for the SEC next year, and neither one of them will be in the college football playoff this year, which is kind of a slap in the face to the Big 12, knowing that these were the 2 teams they were kind of counting on to get to that level this year. But you kind of look at what Oklahoma's done this year, and Oklahoma has very quietly put together a solid season, as well as Oklahoma State. Dylan Gabriel's play this year has put him in the Heisman conversation. You have that running back out of Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon, who's now at 1,087 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, and he's starting to gain some Heisman conversations the last couple of weeks for rushing for over 540 yards the last 3 games. So he's starting to gain a lot more Heisman talks, but I just do not like what I saw from Oklahoma last week against Kansas. We were talking about how vastly improved the Oklahoma defense was this year, and then you saw what Kansas did to them with a backup quarterback. And now that's kind of bringing into questions, is the old Oklahoma defense starting to show up at the wrong time compared to Oklahoma State, where they're not a great defensive team, but they're a lot more consistent defensively. And this is really the first time that Oklahoma is going to have to face a legitimate running back that can change the game. And if that's the case, I think Oklahoma State's going to lean on Gordon a lot to at least keep Oklahoma's offense off the field. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State in the upset this week. I think it's going to be a close 7-point game, but I'm going Oklahoma State to upset Oklahoma this week.
All right. Jay McLovin, who's got this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the weaknesses for Oklahoma State is their passing game, right? The guy's got 1,500 yards, 8 touchdowns, but he's got 5 interceptions. And it's those 5 interceptions that really kind of have me worried, because a team like Oklahoma, yes, they've been struggling, but one game could be a completely different momentum shifter. And if they can capitalize on a turnover-prone quarterback like Bowman, that could get them back and give them the confidence they need to get back in this fight. Gabriel's got 2,300, vastly a lot more than what Bowman does. And his 19 touchdowns to 4 picks is way better. Now, yes, he does have 4 picks, but still, when you're 75% of your stuff is interceptions like Bowman, that's a big issue for me. Now, yes, like Stat Guy said, they're going to have to lean heavily on Gordon. Gordon's averaging 7.7 yards a carry. I mean, that's incredible. To Walker's 5 yards per carry and his 5 touchdowns to Gordon's 10 touchdowns. So it kind of tells you right there, the tell of the story is, can you pressure up on Bowman, get him to throw those interceptions and get into the game, or are you going to let Gordon run all over you, and if that's what they do to control the clock. Yes, I mean, Oklahoma did lose to Kansas, and Oklahoma State beat Kansas. So, and this one, I think Oklahoma State, they have played a tough schedule. There's a lot of good things about them. I'm just really concerned about those 5 interceptions and that turnover problem with Bowman. And not that I can't go with Oklahoma State on this one. I'm going Oklahoma. And I think it's going to be probably like 28-17 Oklahoma.
All right. For me, I'm also going to go with the Sooners in this one. Obviously, these two teams are rivals, so it's going to be a good, fun matchup. I'm going to go with Oklahoma getting the W in this one. Give me the Sooners. I'll go 32. And give me Oklahoma State 24. So it's going to be a good matchup all in all. All right, guys, rolling back to the SEC here. We got Roll Tide versus Go Tigers. Alabama, LSU. Jay McLovin kicked things off. Who's taking the win in this one?
Yeah, I really like this game a lot. Alabama versus LSU is crazy. Milroe versus Jaden Daniels. Daniels is in the fight of his life to try to get that Heisman, right? I mean, he's really put himself into a nice spot to challenge the other quarterbacks that are leaning towards the Heisman. So if you look at him, he's got a little over 2,500 yards, but he's got 25 touchdowns, Logan, to 3 interceptions. I'll take that every day of the week. To Milroe, who isn't quite as illustrious as 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, but 5 interceptions. You look at the running backs, and they're almost about equal, but not really. I shouldn't say that really, because Diggs has 5.8 yards a carry to McLaren's 4.7 yards a carry. So I do think that Alabama does have a well-balanced pass-to-run ratio, where even honestly, even so does Diggs. I mean, he's got 105 carries for 611 yards. I mean, that's not bad. But I think LSU is a little bit more pass heavy than they are run heavy. So for those reasons, that's the things you got to do. I think if you're going up against Alabama, you want to keep that run under control, and if you're going up against Jaden Daniels, you want to keep that passing game under control. LSU needs to bring that same energy that they brought in that 49-39 win over Mizzou. So if they can do that same energy, then this team has everything they have, right? If you look at the Daniels put up 259 yards, 3 touchdowns. Diggs and Daniels both combined put up 264 yards of rushing. And then the biggest thing was their defense. They had 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections, 1 interception for a touchdown, and then they had 1 pick six and then another interception. So the same energy that they put up against Mizzou, if they do that to Alabama, I'm going to go LSU in this one for that reason. And I think LSU takes it. And I think it's going to be probably 35-28 LSU.
All right. Dustin, who you got winning this one, my friend?
I'm going to stick with Jay on this one and go LSU. No matter what the records show right now, LSU 6-2, Alabama 7-1. But LSU is the better football team. They just got off to a very slow start at the beginning of the year, which we've seen that in times with LSU before. Versus Alabama, they've kind of sleptwalked through their season. It's not the same dominating Alabama team that's been here in the past. A lot of the games that they would typically be blowing teams out by 35, 40 points per game are now 10, 12-point games, and that's not something that we've seen a lot from a Nick Saban coach team. Ultimately, obviously, Nick Saban is going to be the biggest X factor because he's a much better coach than what Brian Kelly is. But then you also have to look at the play of the quarterback, and Jaden Daniels right now might be playing as good, if not the best football in the country of any quarterback right now. And this is the kind of the player that LSU expected to have in Jaden Daniels when they named him the starter basically as a true freshman. And it took him a couple years to get to this level, but now that he's at the level that he's at, you're kind of seeing why he was such a highly regarded recruit when he came in. He's got a great connection with Malik Neighbors, and it's just another one of those connections, just like when Burrow had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in LSU. This is kind of that next connection between these two. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a very chippy game just because neither one of these teams likes each other at all. But I think LSU takes down Alabama.
For me, the big factor in this one is how is the LSU defense going to show up? Is it going to be like we've seen, somewhat recently here? Obviously, they got shut out against Army previous week, only gave up 18 points to Auburn, then and only gave up 14 to Mississippi State. Or They gave up a high-scoring game. They lost to Florida State beginning of the year, gave up 45 points, gave up 55 to Ole Miss. And even in their win against Missouri, they gave up 39. So it's really, how is the defense going to show this weekend for LSU? And for Alabama, I mean, like we said, they've kind of sputtered a little bit offensively. I mean, they've won a lot of games in a row, though. I mean, a big win against Tennessee the previous week. I think that was kind of, pretty much needed for them if they want any shot of trying to vie for an SEC championship. So it's going to be a good matchup here, but I got to lean, I think, with the Tigers in this one. I think that I like the play of Jaden Daniels, like you mentioned, Dustin. He's looked really, really good. And I think we're going to have to do a breakdown of him here in the meantime here once we get a little closer to Heisman season, because his name is definitely trending in that direction. So with that being said, give me the LSU Tigers getting the win in this one. I'm going to go LSU. I'll go 35, and I'll go Alabama 28. All right, keep moving here. Next matchup, Texas taking on Kansas State. Stack, I'll let you start things off with this one.
Another team that's kind of really snuck up on people this year is Kansas State, but when you look at the season they had last year, I don't know if you can really consider them sneaking up on a lot of people, because they did beat TCU last year in the Big 12 championship game. They were in the top 13 at the end of the year last year, so you could technically say they're having a down season this year compared to last season, but they've won 4 of their last 5 games, and in that 4-game stretch, they're averaging 36 points per game and allowing 17. So kind of Kansas State is really catching fire here at the right time. Same thing with Texas. Texas has won 4 of their last 5, with their lone loss being that 34-30 loss to Oklahoma. But yeah, what Jay was saying before the show started, he's kind of surprised with the rankings and how Texas is sitting at 7 and Oregon 6. The only argument I can make for that was that Oregon-Washington game, how it was such a close game that you kind of had to put those two teams right next to each other. Versus because, if Washington loses, Oregon's probably going to pass them up in the rankings, and if Washington runs the table, they're probably going to end up in that number 4 spot. So, I mean, I think rankings 5 through 7 at this point are pretty much flip a coin with whoever you want to go where, but just because Washington's undefeated, yeah, they're going to be the number 5 ranked team, but this will be another great game. I've kind of had the theme of upsets all week, and I was leaning toward Kansas State in this one. But I think Texas is going to figure out how to win this game. It's going to be a very challenging game for Texas just because, like we said, Kansas State is starting to play their best football at the right time, and Texas is kind of learning how to play without their star quarterback, Quinn Ewers. So that alone, I think, could make this game a little bit tighter, but I do like Texas to win by about 10.
All right. Jay McLaughlin, how do you see this game shaking out?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Are we 100% sure that Ewers isn't playing in this game?
He's not playing.
He's not playing at least for another week or 2. They're saying possibly next week.
So it's going to be Malik Murphy.
That's fine. Look, even if it is Malik Murphy, right? I mean, Malik is playing extremely well right now. He's got 217 yards, 2 touches, and a pick. I mean, he's not playing bad in place of Ewers, right? I mean, obviously you want to have your number 1 guy out there. I want to have my number 1 guy out there. But I think Murphy is playing at a level that even if he is the quarterback that's going to go, which obviously now it is, he could compete with a guy like Howard. Howard is horrible. This guy, 1,600 yards, 14 touchdowns. I'll give you that. But he's also got 7 interceptions, which tells me he's another quarterback that is interception prone, turnover prone. And when you get a guy like that, I'm going to hammer and hammer and hammer and hammer on him. I'm going to put all kinds of pressure on him because that guy will throw a pick 6 easily, and Texas can captivate off that. Now, they also have the battle of the running backs, right? Because both these running backs in Giddens and Brooks, they're almost about the same in terms of what their production looks like, right? They both have 7 touchdowns, and one averages 6.2 for Giddens per carry, and then Brooks is averaging 6.4. So there's really not a whole lot of difference between these quarterbacks. The difference is in the play of the quarterback. That's where it matters. So as long as Texas can control the run and put pressure on Howard, that's the key for them. That is absolutely the key for them. And I think Texas is going to roll over Kansas State. And I think they're going to get them. I think it's going to be 28-14. Flavor of Texas.
All right. For me, looking at this matchup, it's going to be the offense of Texas and Can Malik Murphy have another solid performance? Can he have another good game? And when you look at it, look at the Kansas State Wildcats defense, though. These last 2 weeks, they haven't given up a touchdown. Only allowed 3 points in their last 2 bowl games. I get they are against, Houston and TCU. But, I mean, that's still impressive. And coming into this matchup, that is going – they're all coming in at an all-time high in terms of confidence, saying, look, we hadn't even given up a touchdown in multiple weeks. So we'll see if that can carry over. I think, though, the Texas offense, as well as you mentioned, Jay, that kind of pressuring of the quarterback, that, insane defensive line y'all got, I think that's going to be the key factor in this matchup. So I'm going to go with the Texas Longhorns taking the win in this one. Give me Texas. I'll go Texas 30 and Kansas State 17. And in our final matchup here, we're going to be talking about big one here, Washington taking on USC. This is what we've had circled since we saw the calendar come out and the schedule. And my goodness, it is time. We're finally here. Just a little bit longer. Jay McLovin, who's winning this one? Caleb Williams, or is it going to be Michael Penix Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is the battle of the Heisman hopefuls, right? I mean, you're going to see who the true Heisman really is out of the two of these guys, right? Yeah, man, you can't discount what Penix is doing. 2,900 yards, 24-6. To Williams, 2,600 yards at 25-4. I do like a little bit some of what Caleb Williams is doing over there. I think he's got a little bit better stat line, but the team as a whole, I really like what Washington is doing, and I don't know if USC can keep up with the team as a whole. Johnson's giving you 87 at 436, so he's giving 4.9 yards a carry for Johnson to Lloyd 7.7. So I think the key specifically for USC is they got to control the clock. They control the clock with their legs. And I think between Caleb Williams running and getting out of the pocket and Lloyd's rushing, that really is the key for these guys. Now, they have losses to Utah and Notre Dame, which really hurts them. But also, Washington has beat Oregon. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think let's see here. Washington has beaten Stanford by 9 and Arizona by 7. I mean, that's only one possession games against teams that I feel like really shouldn't be one-score games. So I think Washington is a very, very beatable team if you put the right pressure on them and execute your game plan to a flaw. So with that, I'm going to go USC on this one. I'm going to go USC being a spoiler because I feel like if they can run and control that clock, I think they can be a spoiler for Washington. And Washington has shown that even against lesser teams, they've almost gotten beaten, almost taken some upsets. So because they've almost taken some upsets, and I do believe in that running game that they have over at USC, I'm going to go that direction. And I really think that Williams wants to prove something against Penix Jr., if not for the Heisman, for the NFL draft. He wants to prove that he's better than Penix. So I think that's going to be a driving force in USC 28-13 favor of USC.
All right. Dustin Reese, do you have a similar thought? Or are you going to flip the script and go? I do not have a similar thought at all. Go ahead. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is in this game. Yes, it's going to be between Michael Penix Jr. Yes, it's going to be between Caleb Williams. But it's about the defense. USC could not stop a river with a brick wall that they put 40 feet underground. If they give up 49 points to California, what do you think Michael Penix Jr. in this offense is going to do to that USC defense? California came into that game against USC with the 11th ranked passing offense in the Pac-12, and they almost threw for 500 yards. Now you're facing Michael Penix Jr., the guy who's probably the Heisman favorite at this point right now, right up there with Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams is not even in that top 5 right now. So if he even wants any Heisman consideration when the year is done, he needs to actually win this game. And he very well could outplay Penix, and I'm not going to be surprised if he does. But at least Washington can play defense. And to win this game, you're going to have to come up with stops. And if USC is giving up 44 points to Utah, giving up 40-some points to California, and the last 5 games alone, USC is allowing 43 points a game in their last 5 games. And they're 3-2 because they scored 51 game, they scored 44 another game. But you can't expect to beat a team like Washington giving up 43 points a game. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be probably the highest scoring game of the weekend, and I think it has a shot to be one of the highest scoring, if not the highest scoring games of the college football season. But until USC can figure out how to make plays on defense, they're not going to be able to beat Washington in this one. Washington's going to move to 9-0, and they're going to keep their undefeated streak alive up until that game with Utah coming up.
Hey, Logan, real quick. I just want to let you guys know I did have a conversation over the phone yesterday with Lincoln Riley, and he assured me that defense will come to play. And he matter of fact, not only did he assure me, but he said, you know what SC stands for? Supremely confident that they can kick the crap out of Washington. So you better watch it, Dustin. Yeah. When the SC wins that game, I'll be there.
Logan, the only reason why he's saying that because he wants Texas to shoot up to number 5.
Yeah, that is true. Hey, listen, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie.
All right. For me,
if Texas was out of the top 10, there's no way he's picking USC.
No, ain't no way.
Oh, man.
So, for me, and Dustin, you touched on it. For me, the number, count with me, all my count fans from Sesame Street, is 5. And no, I'm not talking about Washington's ranking. 5 is the amount of consecutive games that USC has given up over 30 points. What? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. We've been saying about this team, they have the offense to win a champion. There's no questioning that. Pretty much, like they have a tremendous offense, hands it down. Their defense just straight up sucks. There's no other way to put it. They don't got any dogs on that team. They don't got no one. If I'm a scout and I'm going to these games, I'm just kind of skipping over that part because come on, you can't as a unit, awful. Now I'm not saying that Washington. I'm not saying Washington. Obviously, they have their flaws as well, but and like Jay had mentioned, they had 2 close wins in back-to-back weeks, really 3 weeks, against Oregon, Arizona State, and Stanford. All won those games, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Now, coming to this one, I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies. I just think that when you look at the quarterback battle, which is what obviously everyone's focusing on, that's the main point there. Michael Penix has looked really sharp, and Caleb Williams have not here in recent weeks. You've seen one's Heisman draft stock go up, while the other one plummet to the ground. So I think the Washington Huskies going to take this one. It's going to be a high-scoring game. There's no question about it. It has to be. It better be for my viewing pleasure. So give me Washington. I'll go 40 and give me USC 30. It's going to be a good game. I want to see some fireworks. I want to see a lot of stuff going on. It's going to be a good matchup, and it's going to be a fun showdown this weekend. Now, before we sign out of here, Dustin, you did mention that you want to highlight a couple of FCS as well as non-FCS games that's going on this weekend. So let the fans at home know what's going on in some smaller schools that people might not be aware of.
So one of the bigger games this week is probably going to be the Big Sky Championship game this week, where you have number 7 Sacramento State going up against number 8 Montana State. Montana State did lose their first game of the season since their opening week loss to South Dakota State, so they fell from number 2 to number 8. Sacramento State was a Final Four team last year in the FCS playoffs, and then their head coach bolted for the NCAA ranks. He is now the head coach at Stanford. So for the fact that their program is continuing to do what they do with a new head coach is kind of telling the program that he built there before he left. And then you have the Great Plains battle, where you have number 1 and 2-time national champion South Dakota State at 8-0 taking on number 10 North Dakota State, who is 6-2. North Dakota State is obviously the most storied program in the FCS ranks, where they ended up winning 7 consecutive national titles at one point and 9 out of 10. But now it's kind of South Dakota State that's overtaken the ranks of the FCS spotlight, which goes to show you that there's a lot of good football in that area of the country that some of these bigger FBS programs overlook. And it's kind of making me wonder, like, where these scouts are when you see the programs that obviously South Dakota State have put together the last couple of years. They have probably the best running back in the country. And I'm not just saying in the FCS. I'm talking FBS and everything. They probably have the best running back in the country in South Dakota State. But yet he couldn't get a FBS scholarship for whatever reason. Switching over to Division II football, there's a couple of good games this weekend where you have two-time national champion Ferris State, who's sitting at 6-2 right now and number 7 in the country, taking on an unbeaten Davenport team who's number 9. This could be the one team that Davenport, if can upset Ferris State, then Davenport will probably shoot into the top 5 ranks, and Ferris State's chances of a rare three-peat are not going to happen. You also have undefeated Slippery Rock playing again this weekend, and then you have Shepherd, Shepherd is, I believe, number 5 or 6 in the country. They have a big game this weekend. And then my favorite game of the week is going to be the one that I'm actually attending this Saturday, is Division III college football, where you have number 3 UW La Crosse going up against number 5 UW River Falls. The conference that they play in, they have a chance to be the first conference in Division III football history to send 3 teams into the Division III playoff field, because the rankings for those teams are 3, 4, 5 right now in the country.
All right. Well, Dustin, we appreciate that as always, giving some highlights of some schools that need some more love. As always, it's appreciated, my friend. Dustin Reese, Jay McLovin, appreciate you guys coming on, giving our thoughts on the NCAA Week 10 game predictions. Can't believe we're already here. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Go watch some football.